Deputy Minister of Tourism, very young Deputy Minister of Tourism from South Africa, who is wearing red so you can't miss her, and who is leading a very important delegation from a country. Maybe I should tell you that Lord Desai taught me economics at the London School of Economics. I never thought that one day I'll be speaking and he'll be listening. But a decade in the life of an institution is an important milestone and is cause for celebration. But whilst celebrating the achievements of any institution, we should be mindful of the fact that managing and sustaining success is a constant challenge. Success very often tends to lull organizations into an illusory sense of smugness, if I may say so, pushing management in a comfort zone where it does not worry about the potential dangers of what is described as satisfactory underperformance. This phenomenon manifested itself very eloquently when the economic crisis stormed the world in 2008. Many well-known companies in the United States, in Europe, woke up to the brutal consequences of apathy and complacency. Mark Daniel, who is one of the world's leading strategic consultants and a famous business thought leader, draws attention to the trap of satisfactory underperformance. This occurs when an unacceptable state of affairs over time becomes accepted as the prevailing norm, when satisfactory underperformance becomes the yardstick of achievement. Organizations, both public and private, find themselves in a state of stagnation and paralysis. When old models and the status quo are allowed to chart the future, the consequences can be dramatic. To avoid such pitfalls, high-performing enterprises throughout the world undergo on a regular basis an exercise of introspection. This exercise, which constitutes an integral part of their game plan, is imperative as the environment in which they operate is continuously subject to sudden, unpredictable, and often dramatic changes. And whilst we are living in uncertain and volatile times, there can be potentially greater rewards. And these rewards will go to those who can adapt to the new rules and new ways of doing business. Continuous reform and renewal is therefore always work in progress, especially for successful companies. They also want to remain at the exponential phase of the learning process to avoid sliding into irrelevance. In Mauritius, we are trying very hard to foster a new work culture which will take us off the beaten track. It's not easy, but we must try and continue to try. If we really want to be a nation of dynamic entrepreneurs, we should leave behind the past, a past that has entrenched the business-as-usual mode of operation and a mindset of rent seekers and speculators. Government is investing a lot of resources to encourage the development of activities that would create value in a sustainable manner. The days of one-off value addition are gone. We want to support genuine value creators. That is where institutions have a critical role to play. They should be innovative in their thinking. They should defy conventional wisdom, and they should above all be strategic in their intent. And institutions do not operate in a vacuum. Their objectives should resonate with the vision of government to take our country to new heights. Let me restate the core principles underpinning my Maurice Île-Durable vision. It's not just about energy, as some people seem to think. These are to transform Mauritius to the status of a developed nation, to promote inclusiveness by enabling all our citizens to participate fully and benefit from wealth creation, and to ensure sustainability by meeting current needs without jeopardizing those generations to come. To translate this vision into concrete and meaningful actions would require the emergence of a new mindset, both in the public and private sector. Special emphasis should be on deliverables, performance management, and results. Government, through the Office of Public Sector Governance at my office, is already engaged in a vast performance audit exercise of parastatals and state-owned enterprises. Lame duck institutions that are frustrating our efforts to meet the expectations of the nation will have to be phased out. There are no sacred cows. Those of you who are from parastatals here, you've seen, we're already acting. We are going to do this because we have to. We have to be results-oriented. I intend to put in place shortly a high-level structure to ensure the prompt implementation of government's policy, because I need to show results. We cannot have people on top who are not delivering results. You know, sometimes I call people in my office and I ask them, well, why has this not been done? They give you 10 excuses. I'm not interested in the excuses. I'm interested to know why you underperformed. And for those who don't know, I can say you ain't seen nothing yet. We're just starting. Since 2005, Mauritius has undertaken fundamental reforms on its policy on both domestic and foreign private investment. We had to adapt because we could no longer rely on preferential access to markets. We shifted our paradigm and we have set our economy on the path of global competitiveness, based on the principle that our country's success cannot be tributary to the altruism of others. We have focused on opening up the economy to foreign expertise, ideas, knowledge, and technology. As Lord Desai rightly said, we are saying and we are trying to make Mauritius a knowledge hub. We have simplified the corporate tax regime. Mauritius today is among the lowest tax jurisdictions in the world. Reforms were implemented along with the endeavor to maintain good governance and combine economic efficiency with social justice. It is no coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. It is no coincidence that Mauritius ranks 20th in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business 2011 report. 55th out of 139 countries in the Global Competitiveness Report of 2010-2011 of the World Economic Forum. It is no coincidence that we are first in the Mo Ibrahim Index for Good Governance in Africa for the third consecutive year. It is no coincidence that we are 24th out of 167 countries in the Democracy Index of the 2010 Economic Intelligence Unit report. And I must tell you, only yesterday, Mr. Mohan Kaul, the Director General of the Commonwealth Business Council, informed me that Mauritius has been awarded by unanimous vote the Country Achievement for Sustained Improvement in Investment Climate, in recognition of our outstanding economic performance. This is in recognition of our outstanding economic performance in Africa. And it was, as I said, a unanimous vote. The first notable and tangible outcome was in an unprecedented surge in foreign direct investment. During the first 5 years, Mauritius had attracted FDI inflows of some 53 billion rupees. That is more than the total of all FDI during the previous 4 decades. Last year, Mauritius attracted the highest level of FDI in its history, nearly 14 billion rupees. And over the past 5 years, it has increased, FDI has increased by 397%. Along with this substantial increase, there has been a positive shift in terms of diversity of the countries from which investment originates and sectors to which they are flowing. This is encouraging because it bears out the success of our openness policy, and it is a crucial factor enabling us on our path of integration in the global economy. Some 60% of the foreign investments are now devoted to non-traditional industries, in contrast to only 30% in the preceding years, again demonstrating the changing structure of our economy where emerging sectors are gaining prominence. It may sound as a surprise to many of you that the sugar industry now contributes only 1.2% of our GDP. Textiles, only 5%. Tourism, 7%. What are generally referred to as the four main pillars of the economy, that is sugar, textiles, tourism, and the financial sector, are in fact contributing only around 22% of GDP. Other sectors are fast emerging as new growth propellers. During the past 4 years, the average annual growth of the ICT BPO sector was around 15%. The seafood hub, around 10%. The health sector, 7%. These are clear indications that vast opportunities for investment do exist. Government has embarked on an ambitious project to establish Mauritius as an international arbitration center, the first of its kind in the region, with a permanent representative from The Hague, sitting here in Mauritius. Our aim is to offer a modern and an attractive jurisdiction for international arbitration, which is now acknowledged as an essential corollary of cross-border investment flows. 2 days ago, I launched the mediation division of the Supreme Court with the assistance of the Investment Climate Facility for Africa and the Honorable Chief Justice. Again, he also made a plea to the members of the bar. We tend to go in our comfort zone. We don't want to go out of our comfort zones. But fortunately, with his immense persuasive powers, I think the Honorable Chief Justice convinced them that it is going to be good for them and good for the country. And we opened it with the help of the Investment Climate Facility for Africa. In his speech 2 days ago, the CEO of the Investment Climate Facility for Africa, Mr. Omari Issa, agreed with me that today's investment represents tomorrow's growth. And it is essential that we foster a business-friendly environment to facilitate investment. The extensive network of double taxation agreements which we have concluded with a large number of investor countries makes Mauritius a perfect platform for international investments and the ideal place for the resolution of investment disputes. While the global economy is rebalancing itself, our own has been very Eurocentric. All our industries are called upon to seize the opportunities that this rebalancing brings with a focus on the BRICS countries. The economic center of gravity is fast shifting away from the West. India and China are now the new economic forces, while Africa is growing at an unprecedented rapid pace. As pointed out by the Secretary of State for the United States, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, she was speaking at the Africa Growth and Opportunity Forum last week in Zambia. And she said the GDP of Africa is expected to grow